$1 billion. That is what moved out of 100 banks before anyone officially noticed. Not through a smashed window or a threatened teller, through an ATM, handing out cash on command. No card in the slot, no PIN typed, just money, to a man standing there waiting for it, at an hour someone else had already chosen. That is the ending. This is how it started. Somewhere inside one of those banks, months earlier, an employee opened an ordinary-looking email. On another screen, hundreds of miles away, someone began watching everything that employee did in real time. The employee had no idea. Nobody in the building did. 2 threads to hold on to tonight. The first is how you rob 100 banks without ever touching a vault. The second is the one part of the plan that could not stay invisible forever. Both come back before this file closes. Most bank heists you have heard of move fast, steal the numbers, drain the accounts, get out before anyone notices. This one did the opposite. Investigators would eventually give it a name, Carbanak. It did not start with a vault. It started with an email, an ordinary-looking one, made to resemble something a bank employee gets every week. One person at one bank opened one attachment they should not have. A single click planted a foothold inside the bank's own network. For weeks after that, nothing happened at all. While the employee kept working normally, the malware watched, keystrokes logged, screenshots captured on a schedule, sometimes turned into a running video of the employee's own screen. Piece by piece, it learned which programs the staff used, how a transfer got approved, what an ordinary Tuesday looked like on that one machine. Kaspersky Lab, the security firm that first published this case, called it a criminal cyber gang with an unusual amount of patience. Patient enough to study a bank's own procedures until it could pass for one of the bank's own people. The firm published its findings in February 2015, 2 to 4 months, the report said. That was the average time between infecting the first computer at a bank and walking away with the money. Long enough that most of the staff who'd unknowingly hosted it were never even aware anything had happened. Multiply that patience across roughly 2 years. The damage came out to a range. Up to $1 billion, pulled from as many as 100 banks and financial institutions in around 30 countries. 100 quiet break-ins, not one big one, all running at the same time, on the same patient schedule. So here is the machine, one gear at a time. This is the map investigators used to explain it, never a blueprint for running it. The malware first had to learn a bank's own software well enough to impersonate a legitimate operator. Once it had, there were 3 separate ways to turn that access into money. The first move, inflate a balance. Take an ordinary account and quietly change what the system believes is sitting inside it. An account holding $1,000 becomes an account holding $10,000. Nobody deposited that extra $9,000. The system simply believes it exists. That belief holds long enough for the difference to be moved out as though it were real money to an account the gang controlled. The account holder is often none the wiser until a statement arrives. The second move, e-payment transfers. Stolen funds get routed out through the bank's own transfer systems. The destination, accounts sitting in China or in the United States, dressed up as ordinary business activity. To the bank's own systems, it reads as a normal wire, filed and forgotten among thousands of others that day. One anonymous line in a ledger built to process exactly that kind of traffic. The third move needed no transfer at all. The malware could reach directly into a bank's ATM network and issue a single simple command: dispense cash at this machine, at this hour, no card required. A mule waited outside on schedule. The machine paid out on cue. Nobody had to touch a keypad because someone hundreds of miles away had already told the machine what to do. The machine, trusting its own network, simply obeyed. 3 different doors, one idea behind all of them: make the bank's own systems lie to themselves, convincingly enough and long enough to get the money out clean. When I worked transaction monitoring, this was the nightmare scenario. Not a burglar breaking in, a hacker who had learned to open the door with our own keys. Then he locked it again behind him, so the alarm never even knew to ring. Now the flaw. For as long as the malware stayed digital, it was close to unbeatable. It could sit inside a network for months, invisible, patient, learning. Software does not get nervous. Software does not need to spend anything, and it never gets tempted to buy something it can't quite explain. People do. Investigators later said some of the criminal proceeds were laundered through cryptocurrency, funneled onto prepaid cards tied to crypto wallets. Prepaid cards get spent on things like luxury cars, houses, assets that come with paperwork attached to them, titles, deeds, names. The stolen dollar can hide inside a bank's ledger forever, buried under 100 other transactions that day. The same dollar, once it becomes a car parked in a driveway or a house with a street address, cannot hide at all. Somebody has to sign for it, and a signature is exactly the kind of thing a patient investigator can eventually find. That is the fatal flaw underneath almost every version of this crime. The intrusion can be perfectly invisible. The moment someone tries to actually enjoy the money, it stops being invisible. A title office, a car dealership, a registry clerk filing a deed, a bank's own compliance desk, months later, noticing a pattern it should have caught sooner. Any one of them was about to become the last place this gang wanted anyone looking closely. Here is how the case actually widened and then closed. Not in one dramatic raid, but through investigation stacked on investigation, for years, across borders that do not normally share their evidence easily. By 2018, 3 years after Kaspersky's original report, the tally itself had grown. Europol now put the losses at more than €1 billion, pulled from over 100 financial institutions across 40 countries. Same operation. A bigger picture of it, the thread, pulled further by people who had not stopped pulling, one subpoena and one seized server at a time. On March 26, 2018, that pulling paid off. Spanish National Police made an arrest in Alicante, Spain. They had not worked alone. Europol coordinated the case. The FBI contributed. So did authorities in Romania, in Belarus, and in Taiwan, along with private cybersecurity firms and the banks themselves. Each one held a different piece of a very large, very slow puzzle. The man they took into custody was identified as the alleged leader of the organization behind this operation, and a related one called Cobalt. The paper trail that got him there ran through exactly the weak point from a moment ago. Money moved through cryptocurrency onto prepaid cards, from those cards into luxury cars and real estate. Assets that, unlike a line of malicious code, have to be registered somewhere, to someone, on paper a government can subpoena. Remember the second thread from the top of this file, the part of the plan that could not stay invisible forever. This time, the trail ran through a car dealership's paperwork, sitting in a filing cabinet, waiting for the right investigator to ask for it. Now the honest part, because I am not going to pretend this file closed the way courtroom dramas do. Authorities never released the arrested man's name. Nothing in the public record after that arrest in Alicante confirms what happened to him next. No follow-up report, no trial coverage, no sentencing announcement that this channel could find. The record simply goes quiet, exactly at the point where a viewer wants it to keep talking. What is confirmed came later, and it is smaller, and it involves different people entirely. In June 2021, a court in Almaty, Kazakhstan, handed down a verdict. 2 men, described in the reporting only as the 5th and 6th defendants, prosecuted in connection with this operation. 8 years each. Their case ran through Kazakh banks, breached between 2016 and 2017. They successfully stole the equivalent of about $4.6 million. They also tried for nearly 19 million more and failed. The money they did take, they cashed out through 250 separate payment cards, run through ATMs across 12 countries: Russia, Germany, the Czech Republic, Estonia, Spain, Switzerland, Slovakia, Poland, the Netherlands, Lithuania, Belgium, France. The same ATM trick from earlier in this file. Years later, on smaller banks, in a different part of the world entirely, still being run, still, eventually, caught. $1 billion moved through 100 banks before the first headline ever ran. The man investigators called the leader disappeared into a silence the public record has never filled back in. 2 of his operators did not get that silence. That is not a clean ending. It is an honest one, and honest is what this channel promises, even on the nights the file stays partly open. Some cases close all the way. This one closes most of the way, which is still further than it started. So what does this case actually teach if you are the one trying to catch the next one? The lesson sits underneath every file in this room. The intrusion is not the part you can reliably stop. A well-built piece of malware can sit inside a network for months without tripping a single alarm. It learns a bank's own habits better than some of its own staff. What it cannot do is spend itself. Money that stays digital forever is money nobody can actually use. At some point it has to become cash in a mule's hand, a prepaid card, a car, a house with an address on it. That crossing point, back into a world that keeps records, is where an investigation actually has a chance. Watch the exit, not only the entrance. If you found the machine worth understanding, do 2 things that genuinely help this channel. Hit like so the work travels further, and subscribe so the next case file lands in front of you. There is always a next one, and this room will be here for it. $1 billion moved through 100 banks that never saw it coming. It took an ATM with no card in the slot, a dealership's paperwork, and years of investigators who refused to let the file close. That combination is what finally proved patience runs out, eventually. On both sides of the ledger. Case closed. Follow the money.